The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
There is the legal betting on professional sports that you can do on your phone and a casino. And then there's this bombshell, which is just broken in the last few minutes. This from ABC News. Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups has been charged in an illegal poker operation tied to the mafia. Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier was arrested in a separate but related betting case. These are incidents involving illegal betting. But is there any connection to the legal betting, which was first promoted by the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, whose day just got very, very intense with this report? Whoa, this is huge. This is way beyond, finding out that Tim Donaghy, who is the rogue referee that they managed to uncover, was involved in betting on games, and there may have been some calls that, push games in certain directions with points. They survived that. That was under David Stern, the previous commissioner. But now you're talking about a head coach in the NBA who is tied to the mafia through illegal poker betting. And then you have Terry Rozier, who's a player, prominent player for the Miami Heat, also involved in this. It's a separate incident, they say, but it's related. Oh, man, this is going to be huge. Where it goes, I have no idea. I would imagine that both Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups are out of the league pronto, immediately suspended, pending further investigation. There's supposed to be a news conference coming up at 10 o'clock, and I had planned out a bunch of things to talk about today, and I will do that. But I will be keeping an eye on my phone for updates on this. This is... I hesitate to say that this is the result of legal gambling, but the more leagues interact in the gambling business, legal or illegal, you're going to have these kind of things. Now, you could also argue that because there's more monitoring of what's happening with gambling, that these things get uncovered. Maybe they happened years ago in the NBA with other coaches and players, and we just didn't find out about it. So maybe that's the upside of this. But it's something that is going to be very, very difficult to overcome for a league that is already, of all the leagues, the NBA is the one that's under the most scrutiny for this. Going back 40 years ago, when there may or may not have been the frozen envelope for the New York Knicks in the first lottery so they could select Patrick Ewing. And then you always hear about, teams are tanking. In fact, the league has had to do something about the tanking. They're the only league that's had to do this. This goes back even further than the lottery, when it was pretty clear that the Houston Rockets were tanking so they could get Akeem Olajuwon in 1984 when they already had Ralph Sampson. And then people watch games and they go, clearly they're tanking. And there's always allegations of point shaving in college basketball, and whether they get to the point of being investigated by the federal authorities is one thing. But it's always a slippery slope when you mix gambling with sports, because that addresses the integrity of the game. And, speaking of that, I had some dinner with friends last night, going back to junior high. And one of them has done really, really well in life and financially. And he has been a season ticket holder for the Wizards for decades. And this year, they had a deadline before the draft lottery, the deadline to renew your tickets. And he said that his tickets went up $200 per ticket per game. I didn't even ask him what it costs per game. Obviously, they're good seats. I don't know if they may be floor seats for all I know. But $200 per ticket per game, do the math, 41 games, that's a hell of a lot of money just in increases. And he said, that's it. I've had enough. He canceled his season tickets, and somebody from the ticket office called him, and they said, well, hey, you get free food with this. And he said, well, one, your food stinks, And 2, I can't eat $200 worth of it per game anyway. So, no, not going to do it. They're doing the renovations to the arena, and so they're telling you, well, it's a much nicer place to go watch a basketball game. Okay, fine. But is it $200 worth for a team that absolutely stinks, where the over-under for wins this year is 14? No, it's not. So that's where we are with that. I'll get back to the Wizards and yet another dismal defensive performance last night. They gave up 40 in the first quarter and lost 133-120 to the Milwaukee Bucks. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has had big game after big game after big game against the Wizards over the years, had another one last night with 37 points. They did get 16 from Trey Johnson, so there is that bright light. Johnson, their first-round pick, number 6 overall, and actually had a better night than Cooper Flagg, who, by his own admission, was pretty bad last night for the Dallas Mavericks as they were blown out by the Spurs. Cooper Flagg, 4 of 13 for just 10 points. But let's start with the news that I think most of us heard yesterday afternoon, that we're not going to have Jayden Daniels on the field on Monday night in Kansas City. And that means that it'll be the third start of the year for Marcus Mariota. And, for all the banged-up moments that Jayden Daniels had last year, the broken rib, which we found out after the season he played with and threw the Hail Mary against the Bears with, and the fact that he had some other bumps and bruises during the season, he started every game, including the 3 playoff games. So what was that, 20 starts last year? Well, now just 7 games into the season, he's missed 2, and as they head into the 8th game, he's going to miss a 3rd. The only good part for Marcus Mariota is what Dan Quinn told SiriusXM Radio the other day about Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin, and then repeated it yesterday for Chick Hernandez on Channel 9.
We're hopeful that both he and Terry will get a full work week in with us and aiming towards Monday. And so as we get the week started, we're excited to see where they can take it. But the goal was for us to, as a normal work week, and if that progresses in the right spot, then we'll see him out there on Monday night, which would be awesome. We'll very much look forward to that.
Yeah, Mariota without weapons, not a good situation. I think he's going to have to run a lot anyway. But I would think that, I know that he would want both of them back. Now, what does it mean for the Commanders to once again be playing without Jayden Daniels? They kicked this around on NFL Live yesterday, Dan Orlovsky and Field Yates.
It's a bad sign that this season the injuries have really impacted his availability. We all know that this defense is struggling mightily. Dallas put up 40-something on them last week. This team offensively needs to just play to a pace almost like we've talked about Dallas's offense, where they got to score 35-plus. Second time this year he's going to miss time because of an injury. Mm-hmm. Is it going to impact the way that they call plays? Is it going to impact the way that he plays stylistically? And can they have the season that they kind of expected coming into this year too? So I'm hoping he's going to be healthy as soon as possible, but I do believe it's going to have a butterfly effect of how he plays.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not just him. It might be another week with no Terry McLaurin, no Deebo Samuel. Both those guys missed this past week. Noah Brown, their third receiver, is on injured reserve. And right now the backfield has a little bit of a predictable nature to it. Bill Krosky-Merritt's emerged. He's become a bigger part of their backfield for sure. He's got 7 catches in 7 games. He is only playing on running downs or when they're playing either with a lead or in a close game. If you see someone like Jeremy McNichols on the field, you're expecting some sort of pass. Yeah, this is tough. This season last year was so magical for the team in so many ways, and Jayden gives them so much hope every year when he is available and healthy on the field. But you're playing a second-place schedule as opposed to where they were just a year ago schedule-wise.
I was just thinking how different the vibes are of Washington.
All those one-score games they won last year are just hard to sustain that year over year. So about everything that could go wrong so far for this team has gone wrong.
Absolutely. That's Field Yates with Dan Orlovsky yesterday. Mariota, I guess, is among the better backups in the league. His numbers not overwhelming, 426 yards and 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the 2 starts that he's had. He won 1, lost 1. And having his weapons back will help him, but defensively, they are an absolute mess. Here's some numbers. Barry Zerluga had these in his column yesterday. 28th in yards per play. That's yards per play given up. 29th in net yards per pass attempt given up. They're playing the rest of the season without 2 defensive linemen that they were counting on, including their top sacker, Dorrance Armstrong, out for the year. That was revealed on Monday. They lost Dietrich Wise a couple of weeks ago. Austin Eckler is out. And, for all the excitement about Bill Krosky-Merritt and the fact that he had a couple of great games and was named Rookie of the Week, I think twice, he's starting to slow down here. And was slowed down greatly in Dallas, where I think he averaged like 2.8 yards a carry, and he had 13 carries against the Cowboys. And what Field Yates is telling you can't even put him out there on passing downs because he's not a reliable receiver, and more importantly, he's not a good pass blocker. Austin Eckler is turning out to be a much bigger loss than it appeared at the time. They're also playing without a starting safety in Will Harris, who's out with a broken leg. And by the way, this offense, combined with the Commanders' horrible defense, here's what they're facing on Monday night in Kansas City. The Chiefs are 3rd in the league in points allowed and 5th in the league in yards allowed. So it's a prescription for disaster. Maybe they can keep it close, but what you want to do is you want to keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, and if you can't run the ball, you can't really do that. Are you going to get 12 or 13 carries out of Mariota? You may have to. It may have to be that because there really aren't a lot of options for them. And, you hope that the receivers are there. You hope that Deebo and McLaurin play. But the McLaurin thing is very mysterious. I mean, you don't hear much about it. And why didn't they put him on injured reserve if he was going to miss 4 games? Or did they think that he was going to come back sooner? Just because they're going to be practicing this week doesn't mean that they're going to play on Monday night. So that's a rough situation. Back last night, we used to call it the TNT crew. It's the NBA team of Barkley and Shaq and Kenny and Ernie, and they were doing their thing last night. This was in the pregame. Actually, watch this. They knocked out the nightly news on NBC. In fact, I think they started at 6:30. No, 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock is when they started this pregame stuff. And so this was no, I'm sorry, they didn't knock out the nightly news. That was the night before when they had it on NBC. But anyway, this was 6 o'clock. They started their pregame, and I think they wanted to make it clear that even though the show is now on ESPN and not on TNT, not the Inside the NBA that has won so many awards and has put them in the NBA or the Basketball Hall of Fame, they wanted to make it clear that, yes, they are changing networks, but they're not changing their tune. This was classic Charles Barkley with Kenny Smith.
I was nervous today, I'm not going to lie, because and Shaq and Kenny can say the same thing, every person who's ever touched the ball wanted to be on ESPN. They are the greatest sports network ever. And to be working for these guys is an honor and a privilege. It is.
Oh my God!
Oh, you didn't when you was in high school. When you were in high school and college, you didn't want to be on ESPN. I'm asking you a question.
I'm saying you want.
I'm asking you a question. When you were playing in New York and didn't you want to be on ESPN?
I will answer that question.
Yes.
But do you want a napkin for all that kissing up?
Hey.
The way they bust on each other is great. And this was even better as they were showing the Wizards highlights last night from their 133 to 120 loss in Milwaukee, where Giannis lit them up for 37 points. This was classic Barkley uncorking a line that's just brilliant. With Ernie leading off the highlights with the crew of the Wizards losing the opener.
C.J. McCollum's debut as a Wizard.
Man,
4 out of 14.
I don't know what C.J. McCollum did to somebody. Oh, seriously, man. C.J. McCollum is a good dude.
Oh, who that? Chris Middleton.
Chris Middleton, I don't know what you did to somebody either.
He had 23 against
y'all pissed somebody off.
Giannis, yeah.
That's what you do after you take a Euro step, Ernie.
Hey, listen, man. We freed George Santos. Let's free C.J. McCollum.
Free C.J.
free C.J., y'all.
Part of game 1, man. Pardon him for whatever he did.
Him, man. Come on, man. Somebody free C.J. McCollum. We gave the idiot George Santos. We got him out of prison. Let's please get C.J. out of hell, wherever. Free C.J. and Chris Middleton.
It's only game 1. The Wizards might have
have what?
I doubt it.
I want to see you tell a lie. You're first out of ESPN. What the Wizards gonna do?
I shall not tell a lie.
Okay.
Free CJ.
See, there's a lot to be said for not giving an S. And I think that's part of the key to Barkley's success, that he can uncork that stuff and he doesn't care. And he'll say to them, yeah, you want to fire me? Fire me. He doesn't care. And that's a great position to be in. Also, this Stephen A. Smith comparison here, that, they will still have some ESPN based pregame shows. These guys are not going to do all of them because they do a lot of basketball games, but we'll have Stephen A. Smith on the set. And Stephen A. is making close to Barkley money. Now, he works for it. Barkley makes it clear, I ain't working 3 or 4 days a week. Forget that. They made a big thing about that in the pregame, too. Stephen A. is on all the time. And I bet you he's going to try and elbow his way into the set there. They better not let him. He'd have to go to Atlanta to do it anyway. But I would not want him on the set. And the thing about Stephen A. is he's loud, but he's not funny. He's not really funny unless you really like somebody, ranting and raving about how bad the Cowboys are and showing up in a cowboy hat and a cigar. Okay, if you think that's funny. But Barkley, brilliant. Hey, they freed George Santos. Let's free C.J. McCollum. I mean, and then the reaction between the others, and they got Shaq and they got Kenny, and Ernie keeps the whole thing together. Oh, man, that was a great move by Jimmy Pitaro at ESPN to be able to pull that off. Here's this great pregame show with no games to do because there are no games on TNT. So we'll just buy the show. And, they can still do it from where they do it. Ernie lives in Atlanta, and the other two are used to flying in there. So, or 3 with Shaq. I think Shaq lives in Florida. And so, that's really the way you do it. And so that's going to make the NBA on ESPN a lot more watchable. Now, the other thing that's going to be watchable, at least for the next week or two, is this unbelievable report here that Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups has been charged in an illegal poker operation tied to the mafia. And you got Terry Rozier, Miami Heat guard, also arrested in a separate but related betting case. There's supposed to be a news conference at 10 o'clock with more information on that. So that bombshell has hit the NBA, but they got a really good bombshell, if you want to call it that, or a really fun thing that happened to him last night with the addition of the Inside the NBA show now on ESPN. All right, coming up, Tom Izzo, if you missed him sounding off about G League players going to college basketball and what that means, got reaction on that, and Sean Payton walking back what he said about Russell Wilson or trying to put a different spin on it. You decide. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Hey, if you're just jumping in your car, we got a major story breaking with the NBA this morning. This is from ABC News. Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups charged in an illegal poker operation tied to the mafia. He coached the team last night. He coached Portland against Minnesota, a loss. And then you have Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier also arrested in an FBI sting. And this one, the details of this, well, anything related to the mafia is obviously very scary, but more details on this. Terry Rozier and former Cleveland player and assistant coach Damon Jones charged in a separate but related illegal gambling case. They are among 6 people who've been charged with turning professional basketball into a criminal gambling operation by using inside information to place unlawful wagers. Wowza. We've had, other players have been kicked out of the league for gambling. Last year, Raptors forward Jonte Porter pleaded guilty to wire fraud and received a lifetime ban after he bet on his team to lose. And the prop bet was that he was going to play, under a certain amount of minutes. I forget what it was. And then came in the game and said he had a problem with his eye and had to leave. Yeah, I mean, this is big stuff. This is not the legal gambling. This is the illegal gambling. And the real question that I would have is there any relationship between the two? Did one cause the other one to happen, or is it just that, players and coaches now see such riches if they participate in these kind of things that they're willing to take that gamble? And I would think that immediately the two are kicked out of the league pending the investigation. But I can't imagine that you're going to see Terry Rozier playing and Chauncey Billups coaching in the near future. I just can't imagine that. And I would think if they are guilty, they'll go to jail. Yeah, I would think so. All right. So Tom Izzo, the longtime coach at Michigan State, he's of that generation of Krzyzewski and Boeheim, just a little bit younger than them, and Roy Williams, but he has not stepped away. He has continued to coach. I'm sure financially he doesn't need to do it. I'm sure he likes to do it, but he's seen a changing landscape. He coached for a long time before the NIL and the transfer portal entered the scene, and now he's dealing with this, that he's finding out that there are G League players, professional basketball players, who are going to be going to college. They haven't made the NBA yet, but they've been paid by an arm of the NBA to play professional basketball. And this is what Izzo had to say about it the other day.
I'm going to get myself in trouble, but I listen to people talk of how kids changed. Kids aren't the problem. We're the problem. This was sprung on us again yesterday, where a guy can be in the G League for 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden he's eligible. Most of my people knew nothing about it. I don't think our commissioner. I mean, I am not real excited about the NCAA or whoever's making these decisions without talking to us, just letting it go because they're afraid they're going to get sued. So you're right. I said that this really bothers your coach if you're Michigan State fans, but if you want a silver lining in a cloud, I am going to call Magic tonight. I'm going to call Jaren Jackson, Miles, Gary, Max. You know, this just goes to show you how ridiculous people that are in power make decisions.
Yeah, well, again, Tom Izzo has not gone the route of some of his brethren and walked away, including a very young coach at Virginia last year, Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett walked away just before the start of the season. So I can't do this anymore. And I thought he might even be back in coaching this year. I think he's in his mid-50s right now, but he's not. And Jay Wright, who always looked great and was winning big at Villanova, he checked out. He did TV for a while. I don't even think he's doing that this year. But, you know, Izzo is staying on as coach, but it's a situation which he says is obviously ridiculous. How ridiculous is it? Well, this was Tony and Mike yesterday on PTI weighing in on what Izzo said.
I'm not as outraged by it as Tom Izzo, though I understand
me too.
His outrage
Me too.
and applaud it. And if I saw him, I'd dap him up.
Yeah.
It's less than ideal at best. And then, but Tony, the only thing I started thinking about, I thought about this a lot, because Tom Izzo, to me, in a lot of ways, is the conscience of college sports, and particularly college basketball. But what is ideal about any element of college sports now?
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah,
nothing,
I know.
Nothing. And so I don't know where you go.
Yeah. So my feeling is I'm not crazy about this. I'm not crazy about this. You know, but I can live with it. I can live with it. And the reason I can live with it is because every college player now is a pro.
That's right.
They all get paid. Where I would draw the line is if you played in the NBA, I would say, no, you can't come back to college.
That's the level.
But I'm not going to go to the barricades to keep out 2 G Leaguers who never played in the NBA. So now they just join a greater pool of college players trying to get to the NBA.
At least to the G League.
Just like these two. Right, just like these two. So, you know, I asked today, how much money does the average guy make in the G League? It's $40,000.
It's less than any good high school player.
There's
going
hundreds of college players making more than that.
Way more.
And there's no scandal in this. I mean, you get to the point where room and board and tuition at a private school like Northwestern's way more than $40,000, right?
Yeah, like almost
way more.
So almost $100,000.
So we both love Izzo, and we both sympathize with him.
We do.
But, you know, you can, like European players or African players, they may be in a pro league over there, and they're recruitable to college.
One thing I wouldn't let happen. No going back and forth in the same season, like minor league call-ups in Major League Baseball. Let's go.
No, you can't do that. But I think we're going to have to live with it.
Okay, and that's been the way that this thing has gone. The line keeps moving. And I agree with a lot of what Tony and Mike said, but I also would say to them, okay, you move it this far. What about a year from now? What about a guy who gets drafted in the NBA and is a bust and has played 1 year of college basketball? Is he allowed to go back? What if he played only 10 games in the NBA? Then it's going to get more and more fuzzy. And so I respect what they say. I respect what Tom Izzo has to say. But what has to happen is they have to treat this like what it is. It's professional sports. And what happens in professional sports? You sign a contract. And that contract means you can't go to another team until your contract is up or until they trade you. And is it out of the question that we'll have trades in college basketball and football? I don't think it is. Why not? These guys move from school to school on their own. What's the big deal if you get traded within the same conference? It starts out that way, and then they can trade you. I mean, it's off the rails now. Now, I'm going to play something here from Kelvin Sampson, and Kelvin Sampson says a lot of what Izzo says. Now, Izzo has never been implicated in anything in his life. There has never been a hint of scandal at Michigan State. He has run an absolutely clean program, at least, on the surface. Maybe there's some things going on we don't know about, but there's been nothing. Kelvin Sampson has been a shady guy. He's moved around a lot. He did coach Oklahoma to the Final Four. He then went to Indiana, and while it seems tame now, it doesn't seem like a big deal, and the rules have changed. There were rules about how many times you could text a player. And Kelvin Sampson and his staff went way over that. They abused that. And that's what cost him his job at Indiana. On top of everything else, when the new staff took over, they looked at the academics and they said, oh, my God, there's nobody going to class here. Well, there's nobody going to class now. But back in those days, that was part of the picture, that you got a scholarship. And they got some, athletes in there after that. Tom Crean got guys in there who graduated school in 3 years, like Cody Zeller, who was in the business program, and I know that's not easy. That was my son's major at Indiana. Victor Oladipo graduated in 3 years, those things got shored up. So for Kelvin Sampson, I think it's a bit hypocritical here, given that he was already fired once for cheating, and you could say, oh, it was just text messages. Yeah, it was, but it was illegal at the time. And ran a program where the academics were really skeevy. For him to take his position on his high horse yesterday, I think is a bit disingenuous.
At some point, somebody's got to step up and say this is wrong. It's not what we signed up for. It's not what they signed up for. That's not fair to them either. It's not fair to their parents. We're still at an educational institution, but there's nothing educational about college basketball right now. It's all transactional. And then we go put our head in the sand and act like, well, it'll change eventually. Think how many ADs 5 years ago said, this will play out. This won't last. Okay? Same guys are saying it today. This won't last. It's going to outlast all of us. Because that toothpaste is out of the tube. And you ain't putting it back in. And it ain't going to control it. But what can you control? You can control that transfer portal. And I'm adamant that we are positively impacting lives if we tell a kid that he has to sit out for a year. Transfer, you get one transfer. Anywhere you want with no penalty. Transfer and go play right away. But you can't do that every year. We've made a mockery of college basketball to some degree. Now the game is bigger than all of us. When I walked in here today, one of the first things I said was, this has got Brett Yormark written all over it. That dude is one of the best things happened to Big 12. He keeps us current. But who's keeping the coaches current? Who's checking these rules to see if they're bigger than the game? The rules can't be bigger than the game. The game still is what drives us all. We've got to be guardians. We've got to be the gate holders, the guardians, the people that protect this game. And I don't like the direction that it's going. And I'll be out of it soon enough for all the people that want to call me an old curmudgeon.
No, he's making some valid points here, but it became this way because the NCAA failed to do anything about it. And as far as transferring from place to place, coaches aren't stopped from doing that. If a coach wants to go to 3 different stops over a 4-year period, he can do it. Players can't. And the way they could prevent that is the same way they try to curb it from coaches. You sign a player to a 2-year contract when he comes out of high school or junior college or wherever it is. 2-year contract. And if he wants to get out of it and go someplace else after a year, he has to buy his way out of it. There's a buyout in it. At the end of 2 years, both of you decide if you want each other. If the player isn't what you want, you don't renew his contract. If the player doesn't want to stay there, he doesn't renew his contract and goes someplace else. But you got to make it the same for everybody. And he's right that there is no more academics in there. Of course there's not. And you got players, going from school to school and credits transfer sometimes. Sometimes they don't. There's nobody really keeping track of anything. I heard Gary Williams say this with Steve Buckhantz and Phil Chenier as they were doing like an alt-cast for the Wizards last year. And he said, the players aren't even going to class. They're all online, and somebody else is showing up for them and taking the tests. The whole thing. It's professional sports, and the schools are making money on this. You haven't heard a top basketball program or a top football program say, "Oh boy, we can't handle this anymore. We're dropping down to Division III." Nope, they're still chasing the bucks. They're still chasing the money, and the money is obviously there, or they wouldn't be doing it. And by the way, I saw this today. I just skimmed the article, but I wrote down some of the numbers. They looked into the general manager salaries for football at colleges. Every college, every big-time college football program has a general manager now. And Mike Lombardi, this is what is going on at North Carolina is a strip mining operation. You got Bill Belichick, who's turning out to be a disaster, making $10 million a year. And Mike Lombardi, who Belichick brought in as the general manager because they wanted to become, quote, unquote, the 33rd team, that they were going to run this just like an NFL team. Well, now they're being run by, like, the New York Jets because they stink. But Mike Lombardi, as the general manager of North Carolina football, is making $1.5 million a year. And if you're wondering how that stacks up to the rest of college football, get ready for this. Ohio State, which is number 1 in the country, won the national championship last year, is always a contender, always fills the horseshoe with 100,000 people, always one of the top football programs in the country, the biggest athletic budget in the country. Their general manager, Mark, I think it's Pantoni, P-A-T-O-N-I, Mark Pantoni, is making about half that. $900,000 a year. That's number 2. So Lombardi is making almost twice what the number 2 guy at the number 1 program in college football is making $900,000. It gets even better. The general manager, Brandon Harris at Texas, and that's a big-time program with a big-time budget, he's making $600,000. He's making a little more than a third of what Lombardi makes. Sean McGee, who's at Michigan, is making $360,000. That's less than a fourth of what Lombardi makes. Matt Wilson, who's at Indiana number 2 in the country, he's making $220,000. Mike Lombardi's making $1.5 million, and at Maryland, their guy Mercy Falaise, I think is his name, F-A-L-A-I-S-E, Mercy Falaise. They're 47 in the country in paying their general manager. He's making $180,000. So he's making a fraction of what Mike Lombardi makes. I mean, it's just chaos there at North Carolina, and then they got to find a way to get out of that mess. Speaking of wiggling out of a mess, and I don't know if he did it successfully, but Sean Payton the other day uncorked this after the game that they had against the New York Giants, where they scored 30 in the second half, 33 in the second half, and came back and beat the Giants with Jackson Dart. He said this on Monday, seemingly taking a big shot at his former quarterback, Russell Wilson, who was benched for Jackson Dart.
You know, they found a little spark with that quarterback. I was talking to John Mayer not too long ago, and I said we were hoping that change would have happened long after our game.
Okay, so Russell heard that, and he responded with a tweet. Classless but not surprised. Didn't realize you're still bounty hunting 15 years plus through the media. And that was followed by a laughing emoji and let's ride, which is a catchphrase that Wilson used at his news conferences when he played for Sean Payton in Denver in 2022 and 2023. Yesterday, Sean Payton was asked about that once again, about the crackback from Russell Wilson, and this is what he said.
That was strictly about Dart. I mean, and I that was in no way, shape, or form anything that was directed at Russ. So, and I might be able to see how he might perceive that, but coming off that win and watching how he played, that wasn't any intention at all.
Oh, come on. Maybe it was subconscious, but I think it was conscious. You had pinned your hopes to Russell Wilson. That was the quarterback he wanted when he took over as coach of the Denver Broncos. And it didn't work out. They were 11-19 with Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback. And then there was a big brouhaha at the end because there were 2 games left in his second season. And he had $37 million, Wilson did, $37 million guaranteed if he didn't pass a physical when the new league year started in March of 2024. So they sat him down and didn't play him because they didn't want to risk injury. They did the same thing with RG3 here when they stupidly picked up the 5th-year option on his rookie contract. And in those days, that was not guaranteed. But if RG3 got hurt, couldn't pass a physical when the new league year started, which would have been March of 2016, then they would have had to pay him. So I don't believe Sean Payton when he says, "Oh no, I had no intention of taking a shot at Russell." Oh, come on, you did, and maybe you had legitimate reason to do that. Maybe he was not the player you wanted him to be. Maybe he was usurping your authority. There were reports like Russell Wilson was running his own show with his own office in the building. Who knows? But let's not be so disingenuous there. I'm just not buying that. Coming up, Don Mattingly, speaking of that, he was terrific yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show as he is going to the World Series for the first time in his career, and he has been involved in more than 5,000 games as a player, coach, and a manager. Don't go away. There may be many more layers to this onion, but this broke today that the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers, Chauncey Billups, has been arrested in connection with a gambling scam that it has ties to the mafia. And Terry Rozier, guard for the for the Miami Heat, also arrested in another gambling scandal that is related to this. The NBA is dealing with a bombshell right now. And at the moment, we're waiting for a news conference from Kash Patel, head of the FBI, with more on this. But, wow, this is huge. This is bigger than Tim Donaghy, the former referee who was arrested for betting on games. This is much bigger than that. And we'll see where it's going to go and how many more people are going to be caught up in this. But it is really a stunner, an absolute stunner. And I'll continue to monitor what I have on the phone. But again, Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier arrested. Billups with possible connections to a poker gambling scam with the mafia. And Terry Rozier involved in using information from the NBA to bet on games, and there was, a report. These are the prop bets that can really bite them. You have people bet the under on number of points, number of minutes, whatever it is for a particular game, and that player checks out early because of an injury that may or may not be legitimate. All right, Don Mattingly was on yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. Don Mattingly has played 5,231 games. Not played, but been involved in 5,231 games in Major League Baseball as a great player for the New York Yankees and as a coach for several teams, including a stint as manager of the Dodgers, a coach with the Dodgers. So he's been connected to two of the biggest winners of all time. The Yankees are number one in World Series one. I believe the Dodgers are two. And they met last year in the World Series with the Dodgers winning. So it's remarkable, his timing, that he retired after the 95 season just before the Yankees closed out the century by winning 4 World Series. And he was only 35 years old. Back injury shortened his career, but as he says, he could have played, did not. Then he goes to the Dodgers. They don't win don't even get to a World Series while he's there. So going back to 1982, when he came up as a rookie in the majors with the Yankees, to now, 2025, he has never been involved in a World Series game in any way as a player, coach, or manager. And now as a coach with the Toronto Blue Jays, he's finally going there and told Dan what it's been like all these years, going back to 82, watching others participate in the World Series.
Different phases of that. Obviously, earlier as a player, you always feel like you're going to get there. Always felt like we were going to win it. You know, any level that I've ever been, we've won. And I always felt like we were going to win. In New York as a player, I felt that way. As a coach, I felt that way. A coach in LA, I felt that way. Miami maybe had 1 year there. We had a little run, but it wasn't quite as good as I would have liked there. So, yeah, I've always felt like I was going to get there and have a chance to win.
What's it like now to have a younger son? I think you have 3 grown boys, but now a younger son watching dad on the big stage in a World Series.
It's been a lot of fun watching him go through this. And the difference, I think, with my older boys, you know, we never got on this run. So they didn't do this, you know, extra month of baseball where you get to go and you get to have the celebrations and you get to go through, you know, losing the first couple of games here and having to, you know, have some must-win games in different spots on the road. But to have him go through it and kind of see his love of baseball grow. And that's what's been kind of fun this year is he's just really kind of gotten into baseball. You know, Kirk hits a couple homers. The next thing you know, Louis wants to be a catcher, you know, and then it's like, okay, this is great. You know, so it's been fun to watch him go through it.
But go back and this is what, 95 when you hurt your back or you have to make that decision that you're going to retire. And how old are your boys then? Like, if it doesn't happen, you're going to continue to play for a little while longer. And that team was going to World Series, so you may have held on even longer, but you wouldn't have been at home with your boys at that time. So I don't know. Can you look at it as a blessing that you did get hurt and then you retired so you could be at home?
100%. I feel like I had a choice at that point in 95. And I was actually starting, I finally had kind of found a routine, you know, with my back that I was able to start to figure out, okay, I can play, do this much work, and I stay fairly healthy, right? So that part I'd kind of figured out, but the family part I couldn't figure out because all I was doing in 95 and really 94, I probably would have retired after 94 if the strike didn't come along. All I was doing, Dan, was in Jersey. The kids weren't really coming anymore. They were at an age where they were starting to play Little League, and they didn't want to come to New York and sit around and do nothing. So all I was doing off the road was I'd go home, I'd go to the bedroom, I'd go down to the kitchen, grab a cup of coffee, and go to the ballpark and rinse and repeat every day. And that just wasn't enough at that point. And for me, so the baseball part I still loved. I still felt like I was starting to get where I could produce again. But that other side of it, like the thought of my boys, me trying to play more and not being a part of their lives, I just couldn't do that. And I'm so glad I did what I did. And because I don't think they would have known me near as well if I would have kept playing. And yeah, I lost out, you know. At the end of the day, I didn't get rings I may have had a chance for, but I would not change it at one bit.
Yeah. Now Mattingly would have probably been in the Hall of Fame by now if he had won even one of those 4 World Series that the Yankees won almost immediately after he retired. And as far as the back injury goes, and I'll give you a story. I'm teasing this because I want to play more of what Mattingly said yesterday. But I had a situation with Mattingly which was just wonderful 35 years ago, as a matter of fact. But you look at his numbers from 1989 when he was 28 years old, his absolute prime with the Yankees. Now, they were a bad team at that point. The late 80s, early 90s, they were really bad. But Mattingly was great. Played 158 games in 1989. He hit .303. He drove in 113 runs and hit 23 home runs. He was an all-star that year. He was an all-star 6 times in his career, and he was also an MVP in 1985 when he was only, 24 years old. He was spectacular that year. 145 runs driven in to lead the league. Had 35 home runs and hit .324. The year before, he'd hit .343. Then the back injury hits in 1990, limits him to 102 games, still hit .256. And then 1991, he came back. He played 152 games and hit hit a respectable .288. Then 92, he played 157 games, so he was soldiering through the back injuries. Numbers weren't as great, but he was still a productive player. And then in 1983, he played 134. He was limited to 97 games in 94. But as he said, he was making his way back. And in 1995, he played 128 games. It's a lot of games, for a guy who was calling it quits at the age of 34. But he never came back. I mean, that was the year after the strike, but they had almost a full schedule that year. But he played 120. They had like 150 some games that year because of the strike. 94. Oh yeah, 94. He only played 97 games because there was a strike. What am I thinking? So he was playing close to a full schedule. So I guess the back injury thing was somewhat overblown, but his numbers did decrease. And, that's a what if. What if he had played? But it sounds like he doesn't have any real regrets about that and stayed in the game as a coach and as a manager. His nickname while he was playing was Donnie Baseball. And I will give you the story of my encounter with Donnie Baseball after he explains how the name was given to him, Donnie Baseball.
You know what? I didn't mind it because, number one, it came from Kirby, who was just an awesome guy who he started this Donnie Baseball thing at a dinner we would do in Rochester.
Kirby Puckett gave you that nickname?
Kirby.
Oh, wow.
And it started in Rochester, New York. We did a dinner for Kenny Kaiser. He passed away, God rest his soul. But we do it for him every year, and you kind of hang around afterwards. You might have a few drinks, and Kirby's talking and gets going, and Donnie Baseball, Donnie Baseball. And it just kind of hit, and it stuck somehow. I don't know how it got passed on. But then I thought later, I said, I've probably been called a lot worse. So I'm like, I should probably, that one's okay.
Not critique, I guess, analyze Shohei Ohtani at the plate.
I probably shouldn't do that, but probably shouldn't do that. But I mean, I haven't looked at him really, really close, but I think like anyone, there are places to go to get him out, right? And that doesn't mean you can go there all the time. It means you got to find different ways to get there.
But the strategy of having him lead off, could you imagine in today's game, you might lead off?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's different, right? I think it depends on your lineup, right? I think one of my biggest years, Billy put me in a 2-hole, and that was ahead of his time, hitting in front of Winfield behind Ricky. So that was a great spot to hit. I always felt like the 2-hole was probably the best spot to hit in if you have a deep lineup, and that means your 8 and 9 guys are getting on base, which for me in that year, I think was Willie Randolph hitting 9th with maybe a 400 on base. And in Ricky, it was just a perfect spot. But yeah, the game, I think we've seen it with Atlanta when they did it with Soler in the World Series. They threw him in the 1 hole. He hit some big homers. It gets him an extra at bat. because that spot comes around. If it's a close game in the ninth, you're getting to the ninth, that spot's probably coming around for the extra at bat. And who do you want to get it? A leadoff guy that maybe a high on base guy, or do you want the guy that can change the game right there?
So you don't want to give me any secrets. You don't want to give the Dodgers any secrets on what you think of Ohtani.
I mean, probably the whole league tries to do the same thing, Dan, with the information that they have today. Everybody knows where you can go or where the spots are to get him out. But that doesn't mean when he's swinging good, he doesn't get there. And it doesn't mean you can just keep going there, right? You can't just keep doing it. You got to find different ways to get to that spot or those spots, whatever they are. And that's what makes it tough. That makes him tough. Mookie, Freddie, they got a club now. So, we're going to show up and play. So it'll be a series.
What's your favorite Rickey Henderson story?
I probably think of it differently. I think not necessarily a story, just memories, right? Of, when we go to Oakland, Rickey he invited me out. We have lunch at his house with his girl and just seeing his place. And I remember he had this beautiful weight room. I'm like, man, this equipment's nice. And I said, use this in the winter. He's like, nah, I basically do push-ups and sit-ups and run sprints. So he had this beautiful weight room that he never really used. But I just have memories like that. Just him and I just kind of hit it off, on the field and off. And I thought that's what I think about.
Did he talk in third person to you?
No, I think we all kind of take this stuff a little further than it needs to go, right? But Rickey was sharp for me. He was a player that knew what he was doing and was smart. I felt like off the field too. Wasn't doing crazy stuff.
Do you feel like an underdog in this series?
Yeah, a little bit. I think you have to. The Dodgers have got experience. They won last year. They've showed you see a little bit of the Bulls, like in Michael's years with the regular season doesn't really, it's like they get in, who wants to play them. So they've got that experience and that pedigree. But the great thing about our club, and I've said it a couple of times, they just show up and play. It feels like Sandlot with our guys. They look like they're having fun. They've always just showed up and played. We lose 2 or 3 in a row during the regular season, they show up and play. If we've won 5 or 6 in a row, they look the same. They show up and they play. And I think that's what we'll do. I think we'll show up and we'll play. We play pretty good baseball. We catch the ball. We run the bases decent. We can put it in play a little bit. Their starting pitching is really, really good. Those the 4 guys they threw that last series, they're all number ones. So it's going to be a battle.
Do you think about the Hall of Fame?
Now and then, more when people bring it up, only, and I've started. I think I've changed over the years. You're kind of like, yeah, whatever. I've played my cards or whatever. But I think I look back at it now and go, you know what? There's not a guy in there, a pitcher in there that I don't think I could hit. There really isn't. There's never been a guy that I didn't think I could hit. And I know that if I was on the field with those guys, I wouldn't be out of place. But after that, what am I going to do? You keep going.
Yeah, but we put in guys who got injured and their careers cut short. We do this in all sports, especially football.
Yeah, but Dan, you know what? I'm not going to politic. I basically did what our club does. I showed up and I played. Now I'm raising boys and getting along in baseball, getting older. I think I'd be just as happy being a bench coach or an advisor or coaching Louis' 10U team. It's just like, and just get a different perspective over time. So that part of my life is, those cards have been played, but I do feel like I know I wouldn't be out of place on a field with any of those guys.
So Randy Johnson, Steve Carlton, no problem. Bring them on?
No, I say bring them on. I don't say no problem. You know what I mean? There's guys that give you problems but you figure them out. You got to try to figure it out. And Randy was kind of the opposite. I hit Randy early really well. As he started to get the slider over, he'd give me more and more trouble, right? And that doesn't mean that like Carlton, I faced him, but he was kind of past his prime where I didn't get to see the nasty slider and all that. But I just know that I figured it out. I figured it out. I've never felt like anybody really ever overpowered me, and nobody that I felt like threw too hard for me, any of that kind of stuff, and just kind of always figured it out.
Yeah, Don Mattingly, if his career had not ended when he was 35 years old and played another 3 or 4 years, he certainly would have accumulated the numbers to put him in the Hall of Fame, and then he would have played in World Series. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's tragic, but it was his choice, as he said. He was, feeling better. And again, in his last year, he played 128 games. It wasn't like, he was on the shelf all the time like Anthony Rendon. And career numbers, he had over 2,000 hits, 2,100 hits. He had, 222 home runs. He drove in over 1,000 runs. He was an all-star 6 times. He was an MVP once. Like to see him get consideration. It wasn't like he was, milking a career like some have. Some play well past when they should be playing just to rack up more numbers. So, But I've always found him to be a good guy, and this is the story that I will tell here. This goes back to 1990, and I was working for Sports News Network, which was a one-year operation. It was put together by Mislew. Mislew used to syndicate games on TV long before cable took everything over, before, ESPN and Fox and all this. So they knew that they had to come up with something else, and they had the idea of doing ESPN News before ESPN News did it, before ESPN put together their own 24-hour news cycle, kind of like what CNN headline news used to be. And ESPN wanted to do it themselves, so they did everything they could to make it difficult, and they wouldn't let them use their highlights and things like that. So it didn't last, and they went through a lot of money. But I was working as a reporter with them, and I was living in New York, so I was covering a lot of Mets and Yankees games. And I was asked to get an interview with Don Mattingly. And Mattingly, always approachable when he was a player, and I saw him at his locker before the game, before they go out there to warm up and everything. And I said, can I get you for a few minutes on camera just to talk about, I forget what the story was. And he said, yeah, sure, that's fine. He says, but you need to follow me out to the field because I have to talk to a family for a few minutes and sign a couple of autographs. So, this is going to be a self-serving story, but it's also about Don Mattingly. So we're walking out, and at the time there was a show called The Wonder Years. And it was, Fred Savage as Kevin Arnold, and it was about a family that was growing up in the 1960s. And it wasn't set in any particular town, but almost everybody my age could relate to it. And Kevin Arnold's best friend was played by Josh Saviano, who used to wear glasses. I forget his character name on the show, but he was definitely a regular in all the episodes. So, I'm walking with Mattingly and the camera guy, and I see that he's going to talk to Josh Saviano. I know who he is. And so while he's, talking to the kid, I guess he wasn't even a kid at that point. He's probably 20 years old, playing a kid. He's not 20. Maybe he was 15, 16. Anyway, I say, oh, I'm a big fan of the show. My name is Andy Pollin. And the dad goes, and this is great. Dad goes, oh, Andy Pollin from WFAN. I go, yeah, but I'm standing here with Don Mattingly, But that was a cool moment to be recognized by a pretty famous family because their son was a successful actor and a Yankee fan. Got to meet Don Mattingly, and I got to meet Josh Saviano and the dad and the mom, and for the dad's purposes, I guess he got to meet me. So there you go. That's a lot of times people tell stories about other people and it's about them. I guess that's one of them. All right, much more on the gambling scandal tomorrow, and more from what we hear from Ashburn today, as it appears that Jayden Daniels will not be the quarterback Monday night. Bram is up next. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.